hey, there's a different way to lead your life. There's a different way to set up your company. There's a different way to live your daily thing. And you do not need to wait for retirement.
Do it, and let's refine it. And rather than me kind of showing it, I train you how to basically use this playbook.
Welcome to Get Your House in Order, where the Medici brothers, investors and entrepreneurs, Chris Auditore and Dr. Philip Zimmermann, discuss timeless principles of success, significance and legacy. A podcast for business owners who want to design a beautiful life and a beautiful business. Sponsored by the one and only exclusive Medici community.
Welcome back to Get Your House in Order. Today we're going to talk about a topic that doesn't sound sexy, but it actually is. Systems. System thinking. The title is Work Less, Earn More, Sleep Better, Systemize It All. Chris, the title came from you, and so I want to ask you what you actually had in mind when we talk about work less, earn more, sleep better, systemize it all. We can say that most results, if not all the results in business and also in life, actually are a result from a hidden system. If we realize it or not, there is a system behind everything we are doing, if we acknowledge it or not, and that basically produces the result we either hope for or we don't hope for. So, Chris, what are your thoughts on this topic of systems? Because I know that this was always a great area of tension even in our working relationship. So I'm very excited to hear what you have to talk about and what you want to say about this issue.
Well, I want to start with an image in a sense, because I'm not the expert on systems, Philip. You know that, but I've come to see just the incredible value of how, if you have the right systems, your life just frees up on a whole nother level. And the image that I want to give is that a few months ago I flew up to Switzerland, to Zurich. I rented a car and drove up to Verbier to visit a good friend of mine who literally is spending 3 months in the wintertime skiing every day. By the time I met him, so I made my way up there, I met him. He rented a place, a penthouse downtown Verbier, and the day I met him, he was on his 55th day of continual skiing. So every day for the past 55 days.
How old is this guy? Just so that put it in perspective. He's not a retired man.
No,
by
he's
age.
not. No, he's not at all retired. But he's an entrepreneur and he's created all kinds of companies. We can talk more about that. But what I want to stress is when the day I met him, he'd been out skiing every day for 55 days, and he invited me. We wanted to spend 3 days together. So I wanted to get some more skiing in. I've never skied in Verbier, and so we spend the afternoon together. Evening we go for dinner, and then the next morning we get up very early and we start skiing. And he takes me on 3 different mountains within the first 5-6 hours. So we were all over the place, and then afterwards we get down, and then he says, now we're gonna go and hit the gym, and and then we hit the gym, and then we go to the sauna and we enjoy the sauna, and then we're basically done by 3:30 in the afternoon, and we sit down, and then I had this conversation with him. I'm like, David, this is crazy. You've been doing this for 55 days in a row. I mean, this is you're not in a sense retired, where you're not working at all anymore and just living off the pay. But you actually have things that you're running. How have you been doing this that you can actually do this for all these months ago? And we had this brilliant conversation about systems. Now, I already said that it took me some time to get this into my mind, that how important systems are, because I'm not a systems guy. I tell people I don't have an engineer brain. I work with a lot of people who have engineer brains, who are very great at at systemizing things very kind of square. I would sometimes say, and I'm not like that. I'm not wired in that way. But when I had this conversation with him, on the mountains, skiing for a day, and observing that this is the way he creates his life, the way, and we talked about sleep, how he's sleeping well, how obviously he's exhausted after a day of skiing, and the sauna is helping him, and still, he's running a different investments. He's running different entrepreneurial companies. It just gave me another image. Wow, there are different ways on how to lead your life, and so the reason I wanted to address this in this episode is that sometimes entrepreneurs and business people just get stuck in the way they operate their lives, and we need some role models. We need some examples. Hey, there's a different way to lead your life. There's a different way to set up your company. There's a different way to live your daily thing, and you do not need to wait for retirement. In fact, my friend David, he wrote a book which I think the title is "Live Rich Now." So, in a sense, don't wait for the retirement to start living a rich life. So, and one of the conversations we had is that at some point he took a sabbatical for a year. This was years ago already, and now he basically every year he has put on this agenda that for 3 months he wants to be skiing. I don't know how long he will do that, but he has re-engineered his whole work to basically suit his lifestyle. And so I want to put out there is that in the hustle culture, in the work culture in the big cities, where a lot of entrepreneurial ventures are happening, there are ways on how you can set up your life where you actually sleep, where you're sleeping good, you're doing enough exercise, you're enjoying life, and you've looked at your year, you've looked at your month, you've looked at your week, you've looked at your day, and you've engineered it so that you can actually enjoy it. And then it all comes down to systems. How do you structure it? How do you set it up? And so I thought this is a wonderful thing for us to talk about.
Well, I like that it's not just a business topic, but it's a life topic, and there's a lot we can talk about. When really in business, especially as entrepreneurs, we get to a certain level, and it was our hustle. It was basically creating something out of nothing. We drive that. That's giving us a kind of adrenaline and kind of the power to keep going, the fuel. But at some point, what got you here won't get you there. And that is just, you will sabotage actually your next level of success if you are not at some point really make sure that there are systems and processes in what you have actually created so that the next stage can happen. But in the personal life, it's the same thing. If there's something that you are frustrated with, look at it from an engineer perspective and look at the system behind it. What are the steps? And you will realize, there are certain steps that you can tweak, that you can change, and all of a sudden you get a different result. I remember one leader one time giving a keynote on this topic that kind of stood out to me until this day. He said, he looked at the system of his family and his teenage kids, and he had a teenage son whose job was to take out the trash. Every Thursday evening, when on the next Friday morning early they would collect the trash, so he would have to haul down the trash bin down kind of the road so that the truck could get it. And he was so frustrated because his son would always mess it up, and in the Friday morning would come, he would hear the truck is coming, would be all nervous. Did his son do it? He looked out of the window, the trash is still there. Crap! I need to get out of the bed to haul the stupid thing out. Be mad all day at my son. Then I would shout at him, and I would and then one week he would do it, and then the next week he would not do it. And he looked at it and said, "That's the system." So I tell my kid 3 times to do it. He doesn't do it. I shout at him. He does it once, and then I do it again. And he's like, there must be a better way. So what he said is like...
I'm very curious to hear the better way, because I've got 3 teenagers at home, and I can't wait to hear the answer to the solution.
Here's the better way. he basically sat down with his son and said, "Listen, you get an allowance of 25 euros or something a week." Or whatever the number was. And every time I have to do your job, I get paid, for you, I actually am cheap labor. I'll do minimum wage. So you pay me $10 or $15 every time I have to take out the trash. And we'll just take it out of your allowance, and then you have to live on the rest. And so the first Thursday comes, nothing happens. The son doesn't do anything. Friday mornings, he gets out of bed, but rather than being angry, he was like, "Oh, I just made $10," and takes out the trash. And the son, all of a sudden, at the end of the week, only gets $5 or 5 euros or something. Is all kind of furious that he doesn't have more, because there's a weekend coming up. That he wants to go out with his friends. All of a sudden, doesn't have enough money. From that day on, there was not a problem. The trash was out every Thursday evening.
Well, I think I can improve some of my system. We've incentivized a lot of things in my house, and I don't know. It's not working in all areas. But yeah, I think we need to talk about it. I said that I'm not the expert. Philip, you're the expert on system creation. In fact, we oversee 25 or 26 different entities, companies, even some non-profit stuff, and people ask me all the time, because how in the world can you manage all this stuff? Like, how do you do that? Because the story is that now I'm not operational anymore, and so I've retired from operational world, which was a big cut, kind of in our life. I don't oversee any staff. I don't lead any direct teams, and that was a very, very conscious decision, because I don't want anymore. I don't want to do that. But the only way I can do that now is because we've set up some systems now. I have realized I need help in this, and that's one reason why we've started working together on such a deep level, Philip. Because you're an expert at looking at setups and how do you structure it, and so talk to us a little bit about how do you do that in companies.
So more normally the first thing that happens in a company is like somebody hears a talk or reads a book on Systemize. Your life and your business and everything will be roses and sunshine, and that's just not true. You start systemizing it, and then nobody cares about the systems, and the things are changing so fast you can't even know. So you spend more time on actually systemizing, and then it actually will help you to improve that. So there's a whole kind of a process you have to go through. We actually, in our self-managing business a coaching program, we actually take people through that process. And one aspect of that is coming up with the right systems. I call them playbooks, because I think this gives a better picture than a system, because a system is just one aspect of a playbook. Is really more kind of writing down some general rules, some kind of expectations for a certain task, and then if it's needed, if it's very specific, it can be very specific. But you only do this after you basically mapped out what are really the mission critical aspects of your business that you need to get right, and you write a certain playbook for that, and then you make sure that there is somebody on your team that owns that playbook, that he or she is responsible for that playbook, keeping it up, making sure that it is done correctly, and basically is the owner of the playbook. And then you basically take them through the system, and all of a sudden one area can be all of a sudden be able to be delegated. So the self-managing business equation is basically that if you have the right playbook plus the right delegation, you get freedom and you get growth. Okay, let me say that again. The right playbook plus the right delegation. So playbooks plus people, it needs to come together. Now, here's the thing, and we can talk more about this. Once you've actually created a playbook, now through AI, you can take out some of the people, and you can actually really look at the playbook and go like, okay, how can AI take care of this? Now, most people will fall behind in business because they don't have a playbook, they don't have a system, and so you can't delegate it to AI. Now, you also can't delegate it really to a person. That's why so many business owners, especially small business owners, are frustrated with delegation because they are kind of the bottleneck. Everything it's like a boomerang. You delegate, it comes back to you. So because you don't have it systemized, you don't have a playbook that you can say, here's the playbook. Do it, and let's refine it. And rather than me kind of showing it, I train you how to basically use this playbook. So you need that playbook. Then you need the delegation to the person or so the right person or the right technology is still crucial, but that gives you freedom and that gives you growth, because all of a sudden you're pulling yourself out of the equation as the business owner, and your business also becomes more valuable. Nobody wants to buy your business if you are basically the bottleneck. If you're hit by the car and your business is gone, that's a liability, that's not an asset. So you have to really think through that. Now, how do you start? You need to first understand that there's two different things. There are projects and there are processes. And entrepreneurs, business owners, you love to live in projects. Projects are basically, I'm creating something out of nothing. It's the first time we're doing it. We want to get some momentum. It's exciting. You call me and say, Philip, we need to do this. Get everybody on board to do that. Let's forget any goal.
That's me.
Let's forget any goal, any quarterly the thing we are working on, things we're optimizing for.
I get very excited.
You get very excited, and your whole team now needs to jump on that little cookie that you threw in front of them. And
that's a good one.
Yes, and they turn their back to the nice, vegan steak that lies on the other side of the
vegan steak.
that's for you. On the other side. So that's how you actually even sabotage a whole team, because your team actually needs to live more in processes rather than projects. So a project needs to evolve into a process. Let me say that again. You are starting something. You're testing it. It's R&D, research and development. It's all great. There's a lot of feedback loop. There's a lot of back and forth. Don't put it in a system yet. Don't put it in a playbook, because it's basically, now you can have a playbook for how you do R&D, but it's not a playbook on how do you actually do this, because it's innovative. It's exciting, so to speak. But then your business has to become boring. If your business doesn't become boring, you can't scale it. And you can't delegate.
That's a powerful statement.
Yes. So
I love exciting stuff. I get an adrenaline out of creating new stuff. But if it doesn't become boring, it's not sustainable. That's a powerful statement.
Because it depends on you. It depends on your personality, on your gifts, on your network, on all of this. Now, once it becomes boring, anybody can do it, and you want anybody, AI or a team member, to do it. So even in your team, you can actually look at, okay, who's really good in that first project management phase? Who are these firefighters? Who get a kick out of, always, you will use them as task force. Use them as kind of your Ocean 11 team. You have one short-term thing. You want to get rob the casino, and let's do it. We don't know how to do it exactly, and we're not going to do it again, the same casino, so we don't need a big playbook. So but then it has to become boring. If you want to rob different banks, all over the place, that's not a good illustration, but you get the point. It has to become a process that your team can then take over, optimize, and it has to be boring.
I think, Philip, what you just said is really the way to make a fortune. I remember a conversation last year with a billionaire friend of mine when I asked him, he's created this incredible success company. Don't want to share his name or company here, but I asked him what his secret to success was, because I'm always sitting there with my notepad and wanting obviously to learn, and he said, I only have one job description. I create the systems for success. I felt again struck, because I'm not a systems guy, and I felt a little bit frustrated. I remember calling you up and said, Philip, you need to help me even more on the systems, because I'm just not wired like that. I love the adrenaline stuff. I love to create new things. I like to be innovative, and I like to rally people around a specific cause. But really, the way to have success and really lasting, legacy, and we'll talk about this topic in one of our next episodes, really, how do you set things up for the long run? This is my heart's desire. It's just I'm not wired like that, because I love the fight, and I know lots of people in their companies. It's oftentimes it's people in sales, kind of going out there to make the deal, to get the customer. That they thrive on these kind of interactions or these personal touch points. But then if it doesn't lead into a systemized process kind of on how to take care of customers and how to set up referrals and how to then basically it's just always a quick win, but it's not sustainable. And I think getting back to our topic here, you can only sleep better as the business owner. You can only enjoy life more if you have a system that is running. It actually breathes freedom into your life and into your family.
Yes, and rather than thinking that it's boring in the sense like I can never change it or something, you can always change your system. Just know you're already using a system. I mean, with everything you're doing, I always give the example that my wife has a very certain system on how she wants to have things put in the dishwasher. And I only put things in the dishwasher and turn it on when she's around. So sometimes I just turn it on quickly so she doesn't rearrange everything again, so that there's one more plate that fits in there. So even for that we have a system, and we just have to kind of reflect and know, is it a good system? How can I optimize the system? But even in the area of sales, that's kind of one area where I love working with teams, actually, because you normally have one or two kind of sales champions, and they are kind of that is not an asset. That's a liability on the long run. That's why even sales has to become boring. You have to have a sales process. You have to have a script that works. You have to have a certain follow-up message that works, and you can train an average person to basically become really good at that. If you can't do that, if you need the superstar, you have really bad marketing. And you have to work on the marketing system so that you actually can create a way that for sales even it can be a systemized, can be, Henry Ford, he made the car industry, changed the world basically in 1913, I think, when he invented the system of how we produce cars, and it went down from 13 hours per car to 1 hour 32, I think, 1.5 hours per car, and that's how we all got cars, because he really looked at how do we systemize these different steps, and when you ask him the question, when he asks you the question, which color of your car do you want? Is it black or is it black? You would choose black because everything else would mess up the system. Now, I still think now at this stage we need some customization. So you give them the option. You get the car in black, in blue, or in red. But you basically think through even what you're offering through how do I actually fulfill it and make it a way for it to be sustainable and not basically figuring it out ad hoc in the last minute. So a good exercise is one I want to also introduce into some of the companies that we are doing is actually to have a log to say, okay, what came up that needed our attention, in an urgent matter, let's say in the next 48 hours. Because that basically is a log to show you that you have a broken system. That's if somebody needs something right now and needs an answer in the next 48 hours and can't wait 2 days basically to get an answer is a sign that there is something wrong in the playbook, in the system, that they need something from me or from the CEO. Basically, they need feedback.
Yeah, and next to my friend David that I just mentioned at the beginning, I got another friend, Johannes, who last year decided that he wanted to go and travel South America and actually take a trip to explore different countries. He'd never really done South America, and he owns a company. He's got I don't know, I think 80 people or something on his payroll. He's got an office in Frankfurt. He's got an office in Berlin, and for I think it was 6 weeks, he basically took off work to go and explore South America. And he, took different airplanes and he ate different kinds of food. He stayed in different kinds of places, and really became almost like a backpacker again. and he asked me before, Chris, wouldn't you love to join on this? And I've actually put this on my bucket list. I also want to go and explore South America on another level. But I loved it that he, even though he's got a lot of people on his payroll and they have billion assets under management, he could take this liberty to just go and let's say be a little boy again, a backpacker. Normally that's what people do. If they after high school you go backpacking in Asia or in South America, and he does it now. As an adult, as a grown successful businessman. He's got a family. His wife, I think, was with him at the beginning of the journey. Then she went back home, but he had that liberty to create that. And so for me, it's another image. Yeah, I know too many business guys whose lifestyle doesn't match their aspirations, whose lifestyles doesn't look like liberty, like freedom. It really looks more like a prison. And so if not us as entrepreneurs in business, if we can't design beautiful lives, who can? We have all the instruments in our hands to actually do that. And so it's almost like I want to put this vision again out there, this image. There's a different life possible. There's a different lifestyle possible. But you need to set up. You need to set up your company. You need to set up also your private life with different systems and structures where it's not becoming so stressful. I want to actually give another fun example of a business guy that is doing it terribly. I remember years ago, I went to visit a friend who loves cars. So he's got a few companies, but his hobby is to buy cars. And I arrived at his place, and I think he had about 15 cars on his parking lot. And then he's got a few more in some other garages. And let's say, I think only one or two were less than 100,000 euros. So, lots of expensive sports cars and stuff. And that's his, it's in a sense his hobby and passion. I will never forget the day that I went to visit him, and he comes out of the door, and he was stressed out like hell. And I'm like, dude, what's happening, man? Why is he stressed out? And literally, it was because he was working with the different insurances and registrations of his different cars, and he did not, and it was giving him so much stress. He needed to take them to the TÜV, to kind of get inspections and registrations. Where do you put a license plate? And he was in the middle of kind of organizing that, and I almost, well, I did burst out laughing, but not in an embarrassing way. But I said, listen, you have a problem that most people want to have. They want to be able to afford sports cars, and you have the whole parking lot, and still you have all of this, and it's stressing you out, and you're not free. And he literally, if you'd seen his tension in his eyes, and then I went into his office there, his home office, which actually most people want to have a home office. They don't want to go to to the office. They want to create, but his home office was a mess, and he was kind of looking for papers and documents and kind of trying to find the latest registration. And that's when I clearly said, this is a guy who's been obviously successful. He's got a company, he's got money, but he doesn't have the freedom because he doesn't have the systems on how to register cars.
Well, and that's where often there's a disconnect, even with people who get it right in their companies, that they realize their rhythms to meetings, their systems, their processes. They don't make the translation over into their own
private space.
So
they need to get their house in order.
They need to get their house in order. I
know a good book.
You know a good book. So even in your private life, if there are things you either want to hire somebody to get you to help, or you build up a system where you feel like, hey, if communications with your wife is not going as good as it should be, if this would be in your company, you would know what to do. You would know.
Set the meeting.
You have a meeting. You look at what is our meeting structures. How do we take some of that thinking into your relationships and try to figure it out. Now, that's why our company is called Medici Legacy, because we are studying from Cosimo de' Medici, and that's what the whole book is about. Get your house in order. But But basically, when I looked at it and saw how he set up his banking empire, he set it up as a self-managing business. That's actually how we got the whole idea for our self-managing business coaching program, is like, how do we set up our bank, so to speak, our business, so that we can work on the business rather than in the business, like Cosimo de' Medici did, so that he could leave that legacy, so that he could create, support artists, do philanthropy, and do great work in the world, that he could actually be a Renaissance man during the Renaissance and ushering in the Renaissance, so that he became, when you look at his life, it was a beautiful life, it was a rich life, a colorful life. It was not just all business, but it came out of actually having set up a self-managing business so that you could create all the other aspects of a beautiful life. And now just let me say that, before we kind of finish up, is it takes work, real work in the beginning to set this up. That's why this is not a hand-off thing, basically, I have to work on my business, not in my business, so let me not do anything. No, first it's really working in your business, really getting it right, so that you have a playbook, that you have systems, that you have a team, that then you can delegate it. Otherwise, it's just dumping, and that basically is going to create a big problem in what you want to do.
I would only say at the end that this is also something that we never stop learning about, and so I also don't want this to appear like we're the experts in all of this. I think what we want to do here, so that's why this podcast is called Get Your House in Order. We're working on our own house. We're working on our own lives. We're working on our own companies, and as we're doing that, we're kind of putting the message out there. Well, how are you doing it? And perhaps there's a better way to do it. And so let's also learn from each other. I mean, that's also the reason why we created a whole community of entrepreneurs and business owners where we get together and we share some of these wins and some of these stories and also some of these failures on how we're messing it up, to basically also say, you know what, there's a better way on how to do that. So that I love the conversation around that, and actually I feel like I want to learn even more in this topic.
That's great. Well, thanks for listening in on and watching the book Get Your House in Order. If you go to medicibook.com, you can actually get a free copy. If you're interested in joining a community where we are struggling, finding ways, having good examples of how we actually are setting up our business as a self-managing business, just go to freemeup.info, freemeup.info, or on our website you find more about our coaching program. But thanks for watching, and we'll see each other in the next episode.